Welcome to the Love is Our Nature podcast, where we discuss all things ranging from love, relationships, authenticity, fulfillment, to lessons from plant medicine journeys, inner healing, and living your truth. I'm not your teacher, I'm only your fellow student. Occasionally, you also get to hear some of my own healing process and journey back to love. The point of the program? That you take away at least one actionable piece of knowledge that supports you in expanding whatever aspect of your life your heart most desires. My name is Cesar Rodriguez. I will be your host, and I am honored to have you here. Happy listening. Welcome to the Love is Our Nature podcast. Thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in. I have a beautiful, amazing guest with me today. I'm going to tell you who she is. Her name is Annabelle. And one thing I'll say before I properly introduce her is that I got to know Annabelle through Ellanah. They were housemates and they became like best friends in Costa Rica. I think they knew each other from before. And therefore, I had the joy to connect with her very closely when I moved in, and we all became housemates, right? So let me tell you a little bit about Annabelle. Annabelle's exploration of yoga has brought her back to herself again and again. She pilgrimed through India, engaging in deep self-study for years. She lives and works internationally, staying for longer where she feels excited and aligned. Her continued intention is to deepen her connection to self, the divine, and the natural world around her. Ultimately, this is her mission, to inspire others in the same way, with gratitude to the weaving of tantric teachings with Bhakti Yoga. While practicing with Annabelle, you will experience the art of conscious embodiment. Her practices are dynamic with an immense focus on presence, meditation in motion, and embodied felt sense experienced through the union of breath and body. Thank you for joining us, Annabelle. Welcome to the Love is Our Nature podcast. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing super well. Very excited for this conversation. Thank you for that lovely introduction.
Yeah, I'm very excited too. So I've been meaning to have you on the podcast for a while. You know, you're one of those people that's just beaming love and joy everywhere. And I just got along so well with you since we first met. Santa Teresa, which is where we met. By the way, right now, just for the record, I'm still in Spain and visiting Ellanah's family, doing a little baby tour. And where are you?
I'm in Utah in the U.S. at the moment.
In Utah?
Just for a few
Now
weeks.
you expect to find an English farm woman.
Not my natural environment, but the mountains are very beautiful. And it's here for a few weeks.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we, just to share a little bit with our listeners, we met in Santa Teresa, Costa Rica, and that was just such a vortex that pulled all these amazing people together, right? I think we were at a few get-togethers where we first started to get to know each other. And wasn't there just like all these awesome people like popping everywhere?
Yeah, constantly. I remember feeling like suddenly this energy of so much social energy in me, which I've kind of put that aside for some years of my life. And suddenly I was like, oh, whoa, now I'm really a social person again, because there's so many epic people, and everything we'd go to, all the events would be like super aligned, super intentional and expansive. And you'd always meet new, beautiful people, or you were still getting to know. It was like this, I always felt like it was this mixing pool where people would come and you'd meet all the right people you needed to meet to then go create something magic.
Yeah. And I'd love to get to how you wound up there. And in fact, maybe it's an opportunity to just go into a bit of your story. I'd love to give listeners an opportunity to get to know you. You're such an inspiring person. You've created such an amazing life for yourself. You're traveling the world, doing what you love, sharing a message that you're deeply passionate about. It's become your vocation as well. That alone has been a big journey for me. I'm still in it, like making your love and your passion your vocation instead of what you can do full time. I think that's a very novel concept for people, I think, at least where I come from, where, you know, there's on one side, there's doing what you enjoy. On the other side, there's work, so that you can eventually then go do what you enjoy, right? And you and so many awesome people that I've gotten to meet lately somehow found a way to just combine that, and on top of that, also just travel the world and live in epic, beautiful, nature-filled places, right? So take us back. We'll get there to your passion and your vocation in a moment, but you were born in England, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so what was your family life like? What was your environment like growing up?
I was super blessed in many ways in that my family, I grew up on a farm. So in a very sleepy town called Hereford, like outside of, maybe 4 hours outside of London towards Wales, very rural. Like I couldn't even walk to town or to any of my friends' houses. It was like, which
I've been to, by the way, right? Is that where you grew up, in that house? In
the same house my whole childhood until I left university. And my parents have been there over 30 years. So it's, as you know, it's very expansive. There's a lot of space. So I grew up with horses riding around the fields and like very idyllic in that way. And I went to a school which was great and had a really incredible childhood. Like I can't complain in any sense. And my parents really did the best that they could. And, they were still traditional in their own way. And my life definitely took a turn that they were not expecting and weren't best pleased about. And they did a lot of like trying to discourage and keep my path to what they wanted. And I think really as I started to kind of...
Around what age of your life?
I mean, I was always kind of quite rebellious my whole life, but then it really, especially teenage years, but then it really around, I'd say it was 21 or 22. After university, and there was this very clear mapped out way of what was supposed to happen according to my parents, and I even believed that for much time, like what's normal for the people around my area to move towards. And I went to Australia to do a yoga teacher training, and that was kind of like I guess that was one shift that suddenly like opened me up to a very different world, different people. And I mean, becoming a full-time yoga teacher was like a whole journey in itself.
When did you go again?
That would have been when I was 21, which would have been in 2014. Okay.
Yeah. And just for some context, you're how old now?
29.
26? 29.
29, yeah. Okay. Just very youthful. Yeah, so that was, I mean, I had my kind of first real struggle in my last year at university. So I was a 4-year course and most of my friends were 3 years, so they'd left. And in my 4th year, I came off hormonal contraception. There was this implant that they were putting us on back then. I think they still do. And
the what?
This hormonal implant.
Oh.
Yeah, and it was like a contraceptive.
I never heard of that.
Yeah, so you have it in for like 3 years. I didn't have a period for the whole 3 years. And at the time, you're like, wow, this is so cool. I never have periods. I don't need to worry about being pregnant. And then I kind of got this suspicious and I was like, I think I need to come off this. Like, I feel like I want to have a period and just check everything's okay. And at the moment I came off it, I felt much better and clearer in my mind in that I was kind of coming back to myself. But I had a huge side effect of acne, like quite severe acne on my face. And that was like, honestly, up until that point, my life had been like pretty sweet. Like everything was pretty good, like nothing major. And then this was my first real challenge and difficulty of like, whoa, I don't want to be seen. Like I was scared to step out and allow myself to be seen because my face was like covered in these spots and I tried all the different things and the doctor kept trying to put me back on Western medicine, back on the pill. And I was like, no, you don't understand. Like it's these hormones that have caused this. Like I knew strongly inside of me. So then that last year at uni, I started to become really aware of what I was putting in my body. And I, shook up my diet a lot. And I also started going to yoga, and yoga was the one time where I felt like safe and I like forgot about my skin and my face. It was like a really beautiful I didn't quite know what was happening, but I'd come away from each yoga class like feeling so alive and like back to my normal self, because I started to go, my vibration, my mood dropped a lot during this time. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to be seen. And suddenly yoga was like my safe place. And I just, that was when I really fell in love with it. And that's what inspired me going to Australia and doing my training.
That's so beautiful. You know, I think I've never given yoga enough credit for some reason. I don't know, maybe because it didn't play such a role in my path. And then I actually got intrigued and started studying Paramahansa Yogananda and felt like, oh, like the yoga that's going viral now it's not like the real yoga that I'm reading about that Paramahansa brought to the West, you know? So like, I don't know. But now I've heard so many beautiful stories about people, you know, getting on a yoga mat for the first time and finally feeling like arriving at home in themselves and their bodies and then like a beautiful growth from there internally, you know? So yeah, yoga is pretty awesome. Huh?
Yeah. I mean, I think if you don't have any other kind of stillness practices, I think it offers you that space for stillness and presence, which a lot of us, you know, living a very normal life don't have much of. So suddenly it is an incredible vehicle for that.
To just like slow down and just like be.
Yeah, literally just be without the thinking mind constantly doing its thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So you remember your first time going to a yoga class and then feeling like, wow, I forgot about my skin. Yeah. What was that like for you, that first yoga class, besides that?
I mean, I had done a little bit of yoga with my parents before because they had it come to the house. So but back then it was more of an ego thing because I came from a gymnastic background and the teacher kind of like get me to do all these cool moves, and all that old adults would be like, wow, that's so amazing. And I wasn't really breathing properly. I was just throwing my body around like acrobatics. And then it was like, so then I wasn't, you know, practicing regularly. And then at uni, it was like very much at a time when I needed it. I didn't even realize I needed it. I didn't realize it would actually support me to this level. But I started to make the connection of like, oh, whoa, I feel so good. Every yoga class, I'd be literally high. I'd come back to my housemates and I'd be like back to my normal self again. Whereas I'd be very low otherwise. And it was like, oh, whoa, this is a safe space for me. Like, I felt like strong, empowered, and just like I was coming home. It was that very much that, oh yeah, I'm okay. You know?
Yeah. Okay. And then you went to Australia.
Yeah.
When you were 21.
I mean, I always feel like any kind of travel or living in a new country is very expansive for us because, you know, we get immediately dropped into more presence of like the novelty of everything, new people, places you get to kind of, you don't have your history holding you back. You're meeting all these new people who aren't projecting onto you your past, basically. So I found that like a whole new life basically there. And the transformative experience of a yoga teacher training, which is just like for anyone who's done one, they know it's like I always say it's like the biggest gift one of the biggest gifts you can ever give yourself, like a whole say 21 days or whatever to just study on yourself. Like yoga for me, science of the self, and then from that deeper understanding of self, others and the world also reveal themselves deeper, and you get to know and learn and discover more about everything basically. And so that experience really kind of like, I just remember feeling like this, oh my God, yoga is so much more than what I realized. Like this experience on earth is so much more than I realized. So I feel like the word would be expansion. It was just very.
Can you say more about that? Like that this experience on earth is so much more than you thought up until then?
I think just on the level of like my mind opening, I think I always was open-minded and I like believed in, you know, ghosts or whatever and magic, but I hadn't really been around many people it wasn't common for us to talk about that. Like you know, the people I was around, we were just doing normal things, talking about normal things. And then suddenly it's like, you know, the synchronicities start coming in, or like having a technology to kind of like explain some of these things, you know, not necessarily ghosts, but just to talk about, you know, the more mystical realms, and as like a science from a science place was just like, oh, wow, like there's some really real stuff going on that like not everyone knows, you know. It was a little bit like that.
I see. And then what happened? You went back to England after those 21 days?
Yeah, I had, no, I lived there for a while, actually. I lived there for almost a year, perhaps. And I got kind of pulled back to the UK from by a boyfriend at the time. And he was very representative of that like old life, that expected life I was going to live. There was this kind of conflict of like me wanting to kind of fly. And I always felt this feeling like he was a beautiful man, like lovely, amazing man. But I felt like he was pulling me down, not just to ground, but like underground. And I was at a point in my life, I was 23 and I needed to like continue this.
Your wings.
Yeah, exactly. And so I did come back and I kind of played in that realm of like, okay, maybe I can do this old thing of my life. And it just became clear, like, no, this is not the life I'm supposed to live anymore. And so that was very uncomfortable. So then I moved to London. And I was like very adamant, like, I'm not going to do the normal thing that most of my friends have done and get like a normal.
Why London? I'm curious.
I think just because I needed to be around more like-minded people. And in Hereford, like a limited, it's typically of the younger generation who stay. It's just the farmers, and they were the same energy as that boyfriend, and like,
got it.
Beautiful people, but just like not moving in the same direction as me. So then I went to London and I did some nannying. So I lived, because I couldn't afford to pay rent, so I lived with this woman and her kids, looked after her kids in exchange for free rent just to be in London. And I had my intention of just like meeting Sangha, spiritual community, and going to all these cool, funky, crazy events. In London, you have like a whole mix of things. And by this point, I was not drinking anymore either. And so I just made it like a very strong intention. I'm not going to have that same London experience that I see most of my friends having. I'm going to bring kind of travel vibe to London and do it differently. So I had a lot of friend cleansing at that point of just like anyone who's not supporting the direction I'm heading in. I was quite like ruthless, and I was like, I need to be around people who are going in the same direction right now.
Did you ever find yourself explaining to people, like explaining yourself, like, oh, well, this is why I'm not really hanging out with you much anymore, or this is my intention? Are you coming or leaving?
I think it was quite the not drinking thing really helped with that, because that's all that everyone else did was go drink. And so at some point I would go out sober for a bit and things like that. And then eventually I was like, no, I went to more sober, conscious gatherings, and I just would say no again and again. And I think they kind of realized, the people who I still wanted to see, I'd see them one-on-one, like in a park or something. But I just started saying no to the like drunk gatherings that felt like actually not that exciting to me anymore. So I might have had a few conversations with some people. I'm sure there was a little confusion from some people and hurt. But I think as they started to see what was happening in my journey, they kind of understood that there was heading away, and they were like, oh, okay, she's doing her thing.
Yeah. Is that where you met Ellanah, by the way, in London?
Yes, that was when I met Ellanah at a friend's birthday gathering. And he was actually the friend was one of my first ever spiritual friends I met at Five Rhythms, this dance thing. And then I met Ellanah there, and I did my Reiki training with her. And I remember, probably same as you, when you first meet Ellanah, it's like, or similar, you had a similar feeling of like, oh, whoa, who is this woman? Like, she is so like different and special and magic. She oozed this kind of like,
yeah.
And I remember there was one really poignant moment, which I've shared with her, where we went to a kirtan or something. And on our way, we stopped off at like some store that had like a secondhand chair. And she was like, oh, I really need this for my Reiki or something. And she went up the chair, and then she just paused and was like, like made a conscious effort to like connect to her intuition of like, yeah, I think this feels right. And I was just like, whoa, she just stopped and connected. And like, it was very new for me to witness someone in such deep intentionality and presence. And she was very much an inspiration for me for a long time. And the Reiki training I did with her was incredible. It was so beautiful.
She trained you?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that was very, very special. And she really was like this embodiment of love and like living and Reiki energy. And she was also kind of like, I always felt like she was just a few steps ahead of me. She's 1 year older, but in terms of she was also a yoga teacher. And at this point I wasn't even teaching full time at all, because that was a journey in itself of like putting myself out there and being brave and courageous. But she was teaching yoga abroad. And I wasn't even fully aware that I wanted to do that, but I was always like, oh, that's really cool. Like, that's cool. That's possible. Interesting. She was very much an expander for me in that sense.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so beautiful to hear, like, from somebody else's perspective, like your experience of meeting her for the first time. You know, I mean, obviously she's so dear to me now, and sometimes like those things kind of get highlighted even more because yeah, she definitely has a very special presence and just something like a spark that kind of like, oh wow, it makes you kind of like look twice and just like that intentionality of being in the moment, like feeling whatever's wanting to be felt, even if it's like going to bite into a chocolate cake, like she'll just be with it, right? Smell it and then just be with the smell, you know.
It's so like, refreshing to be with someone who is so incredibly deeply present, like literally so much of the time, and it's very rare. And I think that's why everyone's like, oh, what is this? Like I always feel like she's almost alien in that, like so different to most humans in the most beautiful alien way. Yeah, I definitely won the lottery with her. Okay, so you met Ellanah. How long did you spend in London? That was basically a period of, I don't know, maybe even 4 or 5 years, but like back and forth. So I started to spend a lot of time in India at this point. So I kind of stayed up in London. So at this point I was working I've never done a full 9 to 5 job. I'm very blessed, but I was working kind of like shitty jobs. One in a restaurant, but it was like a vegan, super healthy restaurant. And one was at a major yoga studio at the front desk. So that again was another good way to meet a lot of like-minded people, to meet amazing yoga teachers and practice lots of amazing yoga. So you just kept refusing to like get a 9 to 5. And I would basically was like, I can't do the whole like, I mean, even those jobs were hard for me to have to be somewhere at a certain time, and they were really not well paid, and I was working super hard. I was exhausted from like people facing job hours. It was anyone who's done those kind of service jobs. I have so much respect for them. It's like very difficult. It's very draining and like, it's just a lot. Such a soul. And I always did my paintings on the side, so I'd have a few paintings here and there, or I would teach a few classes here and there, or privates and things like that, but I had a real, perhaps connected to my acne, but also maybe a pattern from my dad, my relationship with my father. I've always had this fear of being seen, like this natural desire to want to be seen, but also a deep, deep fear about being seen. And so the thought of like applying to a yoga studio to get a job and potentially being rejected was like absolutely petrifying for me. And so I just kind of, with my art, work had just come to me. I'd never had to like go and try and get work. So with the yoga, I was like, why are people not just asking me to teach in their yoga studio? Like I wasn't brave enough at the time to just like put myself forwards. So I would do these kind of shitty jobs to save up money to go to India. And I think I was also like, you need to deepen your practice. Like you need to go, like seriously go deeper into this to really know your stuff before you can start properly teaching as well. So it was also proving to myself that I like perhaps knew or embodied a little more. I knew I had a bit of healing, quite a lot of healing to do. So then I'd start going to India for... When you say healing, I'd pause you there because, even the concept of healing is very novel for a lot of people. Some people will hear healing and like, heal what? Like, what do you mean? Like, I'm not injured, right? So what could you say a little bit more about what you saw within yourself that you needed to heal, or you felt you wanted to heal? I mean, very much, I was still moving through the acne. So I kind of knew this is happening for a reason. This has already brought so many incredible things into my life from going on this journey, like yoga, that I knew it was here to teach me something. And I knew I had to go deeper into what that might be. So I actually had acne for about 7 years. Even now, I'm still at like the very final stages. But I knew that it was like way deeper than just the level of the skin, that there was something energetic or emotional level that was going on. So I wanted to kind of understand and work with that. So there was the physical level of healing and it's all really interconnected. But there was also like, I just felt like I wanted to be a better version of myself. When I say healing, it's really about like, I'm not perfect. And like, how can I and I never will be, but how can I be more loving, be more kind, be more gentle to myself? How do I become the person that I really want to be and therefore create the things I want to create? Because like for me, I knew I had these maybe dreams or ambitions, but like I wasn't achieving them. And why wasn't I achieving them? Because I wasn't courageous enough. I wasn't the person who was going to achieve them yet. Yeah. So like there was this work just around myself to kind of strengthen up and maybe even soften or open or whatever it was. I didn't really know exactly what it looked like, the healing, but I knew that another huge part of it was I knew I needed to be more present. I knew I was very in my head, and my thoughts were not always the most conducive to what I wanted them to be.
I see. A lot of people, and maybe it's more common in women, but definitely in men too, have quite long bouts with acne. And it's so interesting to hear how, and I guess I'm very curious as well as to, it's great that you had some sort of the wisdom to discern that, wow, maybe this isn't just random. Like maybe this is here for a reason. Like how did, I guess two questions. Number one, how did you get that insight to discern like that this maybe might be beyond just physical? And number two, were you able to maybe decipher what was the internal reason behind it?
Well, I kept going to Western doctors at first, as you do. And I kept saying to them like, oh, but like, what can I do differently? What can I do? And I kept getting the same answer, like, oh, you can't do anything. This is just unlucky. It's just bad luck. And I was like, I'm not buying that. That just doesn't make sense to me. Like, why did this person not get acne and I did? Like, I just was like, there's something, like, not that it was my fault, but I just felt like, no, this is my responsibility to heal, especially after so many failed treatments from them. And the treatments I just felt were not sufficient. I felt very unseen going to the doctors. I felt like they weren't asking me any questions about my life, my lifestyle, how this was affecting me. And I felt like actually they just had no idea, to be honest. Or not no idea, but like they had like one system. They were just reading, this is what you need to try this. Okay, try this one. Okay, try this one. And I just felt like, no, this just isn't the kind of answer I want to. And I just felt empowered to do it my own way and be like, I'm going to do this my way. And so I did many different natural healing treatments and kind of all of those, spent a lot of money on lots of different types of things. And it was hard because I had my parents being like, just take what the doctors say, just, because there's the very harsh treatments like Roaccutane or which can have like suicidal effects. And I knew that was a big no for me because I already felt like very, very sad about what was happening and very insecure. And I just felt like my mood was not quite stable enough to, like, I just didn't want to take that risk personally. And it just felt too harsh for me. And I just knew there were other ways. And then the second part of your question was,
what were you eventually able to connect the dots to? Like, oh, acne shows up in your life because what?
I think then it felt like, okay, I think this could be something to do with my primary relationship struggle, which is with my father, feeling like he didn't see me, he didn't love me in the way that I wanted to love him. There was a lot of boundary stuff. Feeling, and perhaps it was like a protection thing of like kind of, and then to do with the being seen, like I don't want to be seen, so if I manifest something that really stops me from being seen, or like it was also, there was many layers to it, many things going on, many different kind of insights and revelations. I also felt like my whole life I'd been attached, I'd been told like, oh, you're pretty or whatever, and being validated for being attractive, and then suddenly having that taken away from me, I had to like release any attachment to that identity and kind of start from scratch. So I went into a very deep phase for maybe like, I don't know, a couple of years of like not wanting people to think I'm attractive, like not wanting a man to just be with me because I'm attractive, and really just being like, no makeup, like I'm owning this acne. I was very courageous and just like whatever, and not wearing tight, sexy clothes. It was about like, I want someone to really see me on a deeper level and not judge me for what I look like. So I had been very vain when I was younger. And then it was like the complete, the pendulum swing.
Yeah.
So that was an important.
So that was what?
Like just an important phase to kind of experience of that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm just really intrigued by the role our bodies play in our journey through life. And, unfortunately, I don't have like a specific book recommendation for this. I don't think I've come across or felt like there's one that is it, but I know there's several books that have mapped out kind of like the emotional or spiritual reasons behind the symptoms or ailments that we'll experience in our bodies. And those books are very intriguing. And I've definitely had some of those experiences myself. In fact, I think in the first episode of this podcast, I talked about how I had this big cyst. The doctors were like, we can either cut it and you'll have to be 6 weeks laying down face down, because it was like on my butt. And, or you can take antibiotics. That's really the best thing to do. Take 2 weeks antibiotics. In fact, the moment that you feel any of these coming, just start taking antibiotics immediately. The whole regimen, 14 of them. And I'm like, well, what do they come? How do I make them go away? And it was the same as you. They're like, oh no, it's just hereditary. Some people just get it. I'm like, I don't know about that. It just sounds weird. So there's no real cause for this. I just got dealt bad luck. And in my ayahuasca ceremony, in the very first one, I had a spontaneous healing experience. I connected with my body in a way that I never had before. I discovered at an experiential level that my body has its own consciousness, just like there's Caesar, then there's also Caesar's body. And like it's a witness, it has reason, it has feelings. And I was like, wow, I've neglected you this whole time. I'm sorry. Like, you've been there for me all throughout, like so selflessly, loved me unconditionally. And I just like fell in love with my body. Started loving on my body, hugging it. I started kissing my hands in that ceremony. And at one point, I remember this cyst, and I just put my hand on it, thinking that it was, it was like purple and inflamed. So I was thinking I was going to hurt if I put my hand on it, but I didn't feel anything. And then I started pressing it, and then it was like all the pain was gone before I couldn't even rub on the ointment that the doctor gave me. And within a couple of days, like it reduced big time. Within 5 to 7 days, like there was barely a trace of it, just like a very soft brown. And it was like the size, I'm talking about like the size of a golf ball, like it wasn't pretty. So yeah, for me, that meant that was like my body saying like, I want your love, and the moment I gave my body what it wanted, it didn't need to keep waving a red flag anymore. Right. And that's how I've started to learn to relate to these things in the body. Like your body's got no other choice but to wave a flag if it wants to be true to you. Which I also think it's part of what it took on when you created this partnership of soul and body coming together on earth. Your body remembers why, in my experience, it takes with a grain of salt that your body, this is what I saw in my ceremony, your body remembers why you came here. So when you're kind of straying away, it's going to nudge you and be like, how do I get your attention?
Yeah.
So, and I love your version of the story, and also how that extra layer of being vain and using perhaps your looks to get validation. All of a sudden, the universe and the body's like, okay, well, we're gonna manifest something here for you to realize that that's not the juice.
Yeah. And I think it's different for every person. I don't think acne always back to that same thing. I think it's just like, okay, here's an opportunity for you to go a little deeper into yourself and understand yourself. And I think that this is also kind of key, is that in the moment of struggle, and like, I know that feeling of not wanting to be seen by anyone is like a horrible, very dark feeling. But now in hindsight, I'm just like, whoa, my acne was like my biggest gift, my biggest blessing. Otherwise, I might have still just been this vain person with not much passion, not really doing anything that I love. Like it opened up my entire world in a different way. And I think, now you probably also feel like, oh, now I have so much more love and respect for my body. And maybe you would never have gone there, and to reach that height of love and respect without those, things.
Yeah.
I think there's a problem with demonizing and making these things wrong, because actually they're gifts. They're part of our curriculum.
Yeah. And I love that you included that point of like, it's different for everybody, because that I even meant to say that, because it's not like because the cyst meant this for me, that the cyst meant that for you, or that the acne was there to teach you something doesn't mean that that's what the acne is there to teach somebody else. That's the beautiful puzzle of life.
And I think that's the problem in the limited angle that Western medicine is coming from, because they're trying to do a one size fits all, and it's just not. We're different bodies, different beings, different experiences. It's not. That's why they have such a cop out answer of like, oh, it's just bad luck, because they can never make that connection. Only you can. Maybe some people close to you can kind of like have an intuition and have an idea, but really they're never, especially in that 5-minute appointment, there's no way they can kind of understand why this might be happening. Therefore, they're just going from one system that like works to some extent, sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, or just masks the symptom, as we know.
Yeah. We could go on and on about that. Doctors, we love you. We know you're doing your best.
Yeah.
And there's more to what we can see underneath the microscope.
Yeah.
So why don't we fast forward a bit, and eventually you went back to leading retreats, like yoga retreats in Hartford at the farm, right? And you mentioned Bhakti as well. I'm sorry, I said Hartford, right? How do you say it?
Okay, everyone does it. Hereford.
Hereford. And you said Bhakti earlier, and you said Kirtan. Some people don't know what that means. Right? So why don't you say what Bhakti and Kirtan is? Because you said you met Ellanah at Kirtan, or no, somewhere in London you went to Kirtan. Right. So so what those are, and how you embrace them, and how eventually like you started leading stuff at the farm, the retreats. Yeah.
So Bhakti yoga is basically the yoga of love and devotion. So it's a heart-centered practice. The main practice you do is kirtan, which is where we come together in community and we sing, we chant the names of the divine over and over again. It almost becomes like a singing meditation. And it's a beautiful way to connect to, what I love about it is you connect to yourself, you connect to spirit, the divine, you also connect to those around you, and you curate this beautiful, safe, loving environment where you don't have to be able to sing well. It's just about being in that energy. It's about singing with devotion, singing from your heart, and touching those places of love and devotion, basically. And, lasting through the whole length of the mantra. Sometimes a mantra can be 20, 30, 40 minutes long, and it's you're saying that same saying over and over again. And mantra, for anyone who doesn't know, is in the traditional meaning, a mantra, it means to focus the mind, to like hone in the mind. So we use the mantra as a focus point to bring the mind into presence, into stillness. And these different mantras, especially these Sanskrit mantras, they hold different vibrations. So as you're doing this, you're attuning yourself to the vibration of a specific energy, of a specific, perhaps deity, or it doesn't have to have deities in it. It can be like a mantra of peace, or whatever it may be. It's an incredible practice. And that was like very poignant in my journey of like, oh, whoa, I feel like naturally high, alive, in love with life. And I mean, for me, I also was like, as with my whole fear of being seen, I was like, oh, I'm never going to lead a kirtan. I'm not good enough at singing. And like, I'm just going to go to kirtans because I love them so much. And at one point I was busy teaching asana over and over again, but practicing bhakti. And I was like, oh, I feel like a bit of a fraud. And then I suddenly realized that it wasn't about me and my fear, and that this was something we always say, only teach what you practice. And this was something I was like, this just has to come through now. Like, I don't have a choice in this anymore. Like, if I'm truly connected to God in this way, like, I have to share kirtan now. I was like, oh, man, this is really scary. But eventually it just became a thing that I felt like I just had to do. It was part of my dharma or my practice.
I have to ask you this, just because, it just popped there for me. And I I imagine some people might be curious as well. What would you say about cultural appropriation? Have you ever talked to somebody about this? Like, it seems like a Indian tradition, which, by the way, you've been to India and you've sat with the gurus, right? So I guess that gives you a lot of right for it. But like maybe even before that, right? You started embracing it. So how can you just speak to that? Like, how is it? Is there such a thing as cultural appropriation, or should we just embrace anything that's beautiful? Like, what would you say to somebody that's like, Annabelle, like you're a white woman from Hereford, England. Like, what are you doing with a harmonium chanting mantras?
Yeah, I think I really understand and respect people's differing opinions around it and differing sensitivities. I personally feel that yoga is far greater than it, like maybe originated in one country or a few countries, but I feel like it is very much for humanity. Anything of that vibration is to support the people. And I think the key is education. So as long as you really are connecting to the essence of what it is and genuinely wanting to understand and know that this is a vast technology that's far greater than even this lifetime's worth of study, and remain humble to the fact that, like, I'm not the best yogi in the world. I think if you're sharing from the right place and you're mindful in how you're sharing and sensitive, I personally have always found, like, many of my Indian friends and was so excited that I was studying yoga and so loved that and was so generous with sharing their culture. And I had many people wanting to learn from me even when I was there. And the first time I arrived in India, I had this assumption like everyone was going to be a yogi, and they just weren't. And actually a lot of the younger generation were very disconnected from yogic practices. They may have been brought up in a Vedic tradition, but actually, and so there would have been things, that they would have known a lot more about than me. But actually they wanted to learn yoga more. And I think there's this whole dance between, like, Western people taking perhaps just a limited part of the yoga, making it, like, marketing it very differently, making it now more appealing for some of the younger generation to be like, oh, okay, maybe this is quite cool. So, I mean, that seems to be playing out quite a lot. But I think that cultural appropriation is always going to happen when we have such a multicultural world now. Like, people live, like, I was living in Costa Rica where we met, and suddenly I got a little more influence from the indigenous cultures there and the shamanic cultures because they were around and a lot of people were exploring them and studying them. And I think as long as they're used with respect and curiosity, or maybe not used, practiced.
Right.
Used is probably the wrong word.
Yeah.
And honored.
Well, now, yeah, definitely. It's a great answer. Thank you. Now you actually just founded a yoga school called the Bhakti Path, right?
Yeah.
Congratulations, by the way. You just had your first yoga teacher training. You released your first cohort of yoga teacher graduates.
Yeah.
What can you share about that?
Yeah, I mean, with another teacher I met in India on one of our advanced teacher trainings, we connected. We both ended up in LA at the same time, and we connected over kirtan, and we would just meet and sing together. And she actually was the one who, because I don't think I would have been brave enough at the time. I felt like too young, or like, that's a big deal, that's too scary. But she initiated it, and she was like, let's create a yoga school, and like, let's do it really differently. Like, let's honor the fact that we are white, or she's Filipino, but we are Western women. Teaching yoga, like honoring the traditions, but letting this incredible intelligence of yoga meet us where we are at now. As in 2022, like, it lands differently, and so we really wanted to. There's a lot of male yoga teachers in India, like the male lines and the gurus, a lot more men than women, but suddenly in the West there's loads more female yoga teachers than men. And this is like a strange, and loads more female practitioners than men. I mean, it's come more men are practicing, but there's this huge, interesting discrepancy. And yeah, we just felt like we wanted to bring a more feminine approach to the teachings, because sometimes they can feel a little rigid and masculine. And so we wanted to find a different way of translating these practices and this incredible energy that is yoga. And so we're just kind of using bhakti as a focal point as well, because that's what we really connect over. And I feel like the yoga of love is like so much needed, more than ever before. And it really is that practice that takes you into love, into bliss. And I feel like the world needs more of it. It brings us together, it unites us, which is what yoga actually means, is to unite. And yeah, I think I'm really excited. And we ran our first training, and it was incredible. It was super, super magic. And it felt like very,
in Costa Rica, right?
Yeah, in Costa Rica. And it really felt like, yeah, this is what we're supposed to be doing. This is really important to create training that's like slightly more like, I want to say relevant, you know, bringing the teachings into relevance now. How do they meet us where we are at now? Because you have to remember the rising consciousness of the student body. Everyone's on their journey doing, you know, we are very different people to who the yogis were like however many thousands of years ago or hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do we make this connect now?
Have you scheduled your next one?
The next one is going to be in Mexico, and we're just figuring out exactly what dates, but it's going to be around April, May time.
Okay. By the beach?
By the beach in Mexico.
Amazing. All right. So, go follow Annabelle. We'll give you all that information at the end. And I had the huge honor and pleasure to participate in one of your signature Hereford. How do you help me out here?
Hereford. Yeah, you got it. You got it.
Okay, so all right. In your family's farm in Hereford, participate in one of your retreats there that you've been doing for how many years now?
I think about 7 or 8 years now. Yeah.
7 or 8 years. And it's such a beautiful land to connect with, all those farms. And I got to forage my breakfast and discovered green gages, which are amazing, and couldn't get enough of them. And yeah, it was beautiful to wake up in the morning, do yoga with you, have you kick my butt, do a vinyasa. And so I'm just so happy I got to experience that, the Awakening the Inner Lover retreat. And it was a huge honor to even get to lead some of my own stuff in it, right? A conscious relating circle in it. So what would you like to share about that? It's such a beautiful name, as well as such a beautiful mix of experiences in it. How was that born, and how has it evolved, and what is it evolving into?
Yeah. So that was something that Ellanah and I birthed together in Costa Rica. And we, as you know, we moved into this beautiful jungle house, and we named the house Templo del Amor, Temple of Love. And we were both at this time like very deeply in love with each other, and like nourishing a beautiful friendship and romancing with each other. Like we're both like very of the heart people. And I think living together just brought that out even more. Like we would do lovely, cute things for each other. We were just like literally always in a vibration of love. It felt like we were both yoga teachers together, trying to make it work, like financially, and waking up, singing together in the most incredible house. Like when that house was beautiful and sunny, it was just like, whoa, people would come to our kirtans and be like, whoa, this place is just magic. It felt so magic. It
definitely was a beautiful house. Very quiet and peaceful.
Naked, like singing, dancing. It was very special time. And so we were both cooling in our divine loves at the time. And in came Caesar. Then shortly followed by my partner, Truman. And I think at that time we realized like how we connected was very much on the level of love. Like I always joke that I feel like my last relationship was with Ellanah, even it was completely platonic, but it was like we were romancing each other constantly. We were in such deep flow of love and partnership, and we started working together, and we created this Awakening the Inner Lover online course where we used because she's also a yoga teacher, we used yoga, Bhakti, our love of Bhakti, and also tantric teachings and practices weaved into this beautiful, like, I can't remember, 5-week container where we moved through all the different love languages and took people on a journey of love with themselves, but love with their life, their work, their people around them. So not specifically romantic love, even though we were moving through individual journeys of falling in love with our partners, which was simultaneously beautiful. But it's about like love on all angles of love. It can relate because it really starts with love with self, that self-love journey. So we ran that, which was amazing. And we're actually about to run another one in the month of October, which is really exciting. I can't wait to see who joins us for that one. But it's online. It's online, exactly. So anyone, anywhere can join. And it was so magic to do the Hereford retreat, which was like an in-person one. We'd done like day retreats at our house, but this was like a whole like 4 days or whatever. And we had one of my best friends, Hebe, did an amazing workshop as well as Caesar's one, which was so epic. We loved having you. And actually, I think you're going to feature on this next online one. I don't know if
that's right. Yes.
I will have you again, which was brought in such a special element. And it was so nice to have masculine energy on the facilitation team as well. And the way you held space was just so good. Like my mom just keeps going on about it. She just loved your work so much. And I think, I mean, obviously one of the love languages is words of affirmation, but really it's a lot bigger than that. It's how we communicate, and you taught us all like some really interesting tools and skills of how we can better communicate. And yeah, it was so fun having you. So thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, it's been really beautiful for me to get back into doing something I love, which is just working with people, being more of who they really want to be. Kind of like how you shared earlier in your journey, you wanted to be more loving, right? I believe we all have that deep down. And the more we're able to live from there, interact and relate from there, the more we're fulfilled. So I love working with people in that. And I just got back to coaching myself. I'm doing men's coaching as well as relationship coaching. So I'm coaching a married couple right now. And we've created some awesome miracles for them in the short time we've been working together, just, like 3 or 4 weeks in. And I'm excited to see where this journey goes.
Yes. Yeah. I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, definitely. So, okay, why don't we share a little bit about how people can connect with you and maybe participate in some of those things that you've got coming up, whether it's the yoga teacher training in Mexico or the Awakening Your Inner Lover online, with me included, by the way. It's going to be a lot of fun online. So how could people find out more about it?
Probably best through Instagram is where I do of sharing what I'm up to and offering. So yeah, it's just Annabelle Dent on Instagram. Spelled the French way, ANNABELLE, Dent, DENT. And
we'll link that as well.
Yeah, I think that's the best way, or via Caesar as well, and through Ellanah. We're always crossing and sharing things. And I mean, there's Facebook. I don't do so much on there really. I think Instagram's the best way. And it's also, I use it as like a directory almost. You get to like go on someone's profile and you can kind of feel the vibe a little more. It's like, oh yeah, makes sense to me. This is someone I want to follow, or I want to maybe do something with them in person or online or something. And the Awakening the Inner Lover, we're going to do multiple trainings online. So if October doesn't work, there'll be more to come, eventually leading to in-person as well. So we're planning some retreats in Europe and even Bali, maybe Bali in a couple of years. But there'll be kind of like the online containers will be preparing you to join the in-person containers, which will be longer or deeper and more hours, right? So there'll be it's almost like preparation for going even deeper, really.
Yeah, that'd be pretty awesome. In person one in Bali that I've never been to. You'll be an auntie in Bali.
Baby dad. It's so exciting.
Yeah, we'll take our little one that will be born in November. So yeah. Okay, well, it's been great to spend time with you, Annabelle. Is there anything else you'd love to share? Anything else that you'd like to leave people with? It's been so beautiful to just get to know you, and even for myself, just hear more about your story. And I think one beautiful thing that comes through from you is just like your passion for life, your aliveness, and I've met you I remember when you were a stranger, and I've known you now up until now as housemates, and yeah, you really are someone who is just really committed to being and interacting with life and with people from a place of love. So just thank you for being such an amazing, beautiful human being.
I think, thank you for that reflection. I think one last thing I'd love to share that we didn't quite get to here, for when we talked at the beginning about a lot of people working the 9 to 5, but like wanting to live. And I just wanted to kind of say one more thing, which is that journey definitely wasn't easy, making the leap like full-time what I love. And I want to just kind of like share and honor like the realness of like it's a constant work in progress of like without that job security that a lot of people have. And I sometimes feel like people watching me like fly all around the world doing these fun things, which sometimes it doesn't feel like work because I love it so much. But I really had the support of, you met Annie Lloyd at the retreat, really supported me. I had a few savings, and she was the one who was like, just go to Costa Rica. You'll figure it out. Just trust that you'll figure it out. And, me and Ellanah both, when we were living together, there would be weeks that would go by where we'd be like, okay, we're going to be fine. Like, we'd be in the red. And when you have belief in yourself, but also like a supportive community around you and something that you truly believe in, like we were really surrendering and trusting that like, we're supposed to be doing this. God will provide somehow, it will happen. And something always would work out with both of us. Sometimes something would happen. We'd be like, oh, I'm going to be okay this month. And that stress is a journey, but it's also like, I feel like it's possible. It's so possible. And I just want to make sure I'm not projecting this like, oh, it's so easy, just do what you want thing. It's like, always easy. It's beautiful and magic and so rewarding, but it's like
on the edge.
Yeah. It's also very hard times.
Yeah. It's like you gotta jump off the cliff and like build the airplane on the way down, right? Or like jump off the plane and like build a parachute, like trust that the parachute's gonna open.
A lot of people get stuck in this like, oh, I'm not quite ready. Once I do this, once this is set in place. And actually, I think the reality is you're never going to be ready. There'll always be an excuse trying to stop you because your ego wants to keep you small and safe. And actually, it's like sometimes you just have to leap and just try. And that's when the magic comes on the other side of that, like faith. And like, even if it doesn't play out in the way you expected, even if there's some little mini disasters, they're there for a reason, and they're just there to guide you to the next step, and it's okay. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, thank you for being in the Love is Our Nature podcast. It was great having you. And I look forward to seeing you again sometime soon. I miss you already.
I miss you too, but I feel I'm going to see you very, very soon. Somewhere beautiful.
Yes. So thank you all for tuning in. We love you. Thank you for listening. Go follow Annabelle on Instagram. She's such an inspiring, loving person. Be at those things if you can, whether it's the yoga teacher training or the Awakening the Inner Lover online experience, and eventually an in-person one, somewhere very exciting.
Yeah.
So, all right, Annabelle, till next time.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.
That is all, folks. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for being a valued listener. If you haven't already, remember to subscribe to the podcast in whatever your favorite platform is. You can also watch the video version of the episode on the Love is Our Nature YouTube channel. Check out loveisournature.com as well. That's where you can see our latest news and most recent content. If you enjoyed the episode, leave a review, share it with your friends, or email me. I love hearing what you took away for yourself out of listening. My email is caesar@loveisOurnature.com. That's CESAR, or Cesar, like my mother says it, at loveisOurnature.com altogether. Till next time, I'll be here rooting for you. And remember, whatever the question, love is the answer.